Hello there, and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with the community experts about their life journeys and how they came into the community world. And today we have a conversation with Bri Leever, splasher of water, lover of books, top customers activator, skilled generalist, and mystery solving community consultant.
Ah,
So, hello, Bri.
you did your homework.
I tried.
It's true. It's all true.
At least we can do one mark. So the first question is Amber Consulting. Why Amber?
Why the name?
Yes.
Yeah. So it all came from a typo in a text. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to call my community work. And it actually was a typo. But once I saw the word ember written out, I was like, oh, ember. I was like, that's actually like such a great analogy for community because I like to say if you've ever built a fire, you know that there's no shortcuts. I guess like technically there's shortcuts. You can like throw gasoline on it.
Yeah.
But like in integrity, when you're building a fire, there's no way to rush the process. But when you take the time to build a good fire and you get embers, there's nothing that they can't like well, there's very few things that they can't catch on fire.
Yes.
So I think that's what happens for like your top customers when you bring them together, and like embers have to stay together to like keep each other warm and keep each other powerful. And I also love that they're like a fire is made of like everyday average materials. It's not like anything can become an ember. It's not like you need a very specific thing or like you need a very specific person. It's like anyone can do this. It just takes time and takes the right equation.
Yeah, and you told about typo. So what was the idea first?
It wasn't even an idea. I I was sending a friend a text about an organization called Dressember, and it like auto corrected dress and ember. And I was like, ember. I was like, I should call it my business that. So super
Yeah,
random.
luck, just chance. Wow, it's great. So let's start from the beginning. Tell me a little about your parents. Who are they?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'd love to. They are some pretty wild people.
That's a good beginning, Please continue.
So I guess I'll start on my mom's side, and you kind of have to start a little bit farther behind. So my grandpa, my mom's dad, was raised Amish in Pennsylvania. So he grew up on an Amish farm. He was one of 10, and he left the Amish when he was in his early 20s. He was still a pacifist. So instead of being drafted, he volunteered for service work and he moved to Peru where he built roads in the Amazon. And when he was there, he met my rebel Mennonite grandmother from Minnesota, who was teaching music in Ecuador at the time. And they got married and started having a family in Peru. So my mom was born and raised until she was 10. She and her two older brothers. And then she came back to the US, moved to Texas, was like a pageant queen in Texas. It's like this woman, this is like just the snapshot. She is, I mean, just the words can't describe. So she then went to college in Minnesota where she met my dad. And my dad is from like inner city LA. And he grew up in Hawthorne, where he was bullied a lot, got like pretty beat up. And he moved to Canada actually for his last year of high school. He was a pastor's son. So they moved around to different churches, not a ton, but significantly enough. And then they met in in college, he was the football player, she was the cheerleader.
He was a girl, she was a boy. That's
Exactly.
yeah, not
You know
exactly
how
like
it
that,
goes.
but
You know how it goes.
never make
And
it any more
they
obvious. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Oh, and so they got married right out of college and moved to Florida because they went to school in Minnesota. So of course you're gonna want to move to Florida after that. And then they had like they found these like two like they had these two other couple friends who like they became really close with. And for 7 years they like had tons of fun and adventures. And then they basically had a pregnancy pact. They were like, we're all going to get pregnant at the same time. And so they did. And so for each one of me and my siblings, there is one of them too. So they're the Jacksons and the Erics. And, you know, my parents moved back to our family farm when I was 3, but those families have remained like for our whole like cellular family unit, like we have all remained really close, which is crazy. We still like we always come to like if we have a funeral, like you know the Jacksons and the Erics are showing up. If like any wedding, it's like everyone flies in, and now everyone's like all over the US, and like the Erics are like in Zurich right now. Like it's just everybody is everywhere. And we moved to Qatar, so it was like we've all been everywhere, but like we all are super, and we're all so different. Like we're not we're not the same people. But I think that was kind of like the original village that I was raised in and continue to be supported by. So that was way more than you asked for.
It's amazing. That's like sounds like extended family, you know. So you
Mhm.
have your parents, you
Mm.
have your siblings, and you have much more. So
Yeah. Okay. So on that topic, so I live in Hawaii now, and there's a Hawaiian word that I don't want to like culturally appropriate, but it's the best word ever, and I wish we had a word for it in English. And it's called your Hanai family, which is like your chosen family. So it's very like you just use it and hear it casually all the time. Like, oh yeah, that's my Hanai daughter, and that's my Hanai mom, that's my Hanai sister. And so that is they are my Hanai family, 100%.
yeah, and tell me more about your siblings.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. So they're great. I'm one of 4. I'm the oldest, so I'm obviously in charge. And
Yes, totally.
I that's definitely my like original community building spirit comes from being the oldest. Like I'm the rallier of the crew. I'm like I organize the people, the troops, you know, we're like a small army. We can divide into 2 teams. It was just like all of the and growing up on the farm too. So we have like a 50-acre farm, and my parents are both in education. So are also original community builders, like the hardest kind. But just being on the farm and being kind of removed from like I always was jealous of kids who had like that suburban like life and like kids down the street, because like we had like our Amish neighbors like a mile down the road, but like that was that was it. So we had to like get really creative. And so we would just come up with so many games, and like I would enroll them in summer school because like I was the oldest, so I knew the most. So obviously I had to pass that down to them. So growing up, it was like really fun, so many adventures. We really bonded when we all moved because, you know, we had like, especially me and my second oldest sister, we like were close enough in age that like we had some friction. And so that changed when we moved to Qatar when I was 16. And it really quickly was like, well, I guess you all are my only allies here. You're the only ones who really like, and it's not that, I mean, it was a really friendly community, but it was like, oh, you're the people who like understand me on a fundamental level, and like nobody else does. It just like really quickly we were like, oh, I guess we got to stick together, otherwise we're gonna like drown. So that really changed my relationship with Kate. And I think we became much better friends. And then yeah, I've just stayed really close with all my siblings. Like we we definitely have our own lives now. None of us live well, Emma and Hayden live close to each other, but we all kind of have our own lives. But I think they're like this small group of people who have we just had such a weird overlap. Like we just had such a weird growing up experience compared to like being in Amish country, coming from like a really like really conservative Christian roots, being raised like evangelical, and then moving to Qatar, and then like just our and then like coming back to the US after Qatar, which is even harder. And then, anyways, so it's just sort of like these people kind of get me on this like in all of these weird inside jokes that like just don't make sense. Like you just feel at home I feel at home with them. So love my siblings. They're my crew.
What is the first memory of your childhood with your siblings that comes to your mind right now?
Oh man, that's a great question. Definitely. I mean, not the first, but we would play it's all these games. We would I have like so many flashing through my mind right now. So we had this trampoline. It was a square trampoline, and one day our Amish neighbor Alvin was over, and he had his skid loader, and my mom had him like he was like clearing something. I don't remember what, but my mom was like, "Hey, while you're here with your skid loader, can you just like dig a hole in the yard for our trampoline?" And so he did. So we had this like super awesome in-ground trampoline, which like just takes the games to the next level. So we had dodgeball games. I mean, there were like very specific rules for everything, and like to kind of mediate the like age difference between me and Hayden, because we were 8 years different. So it was very fair and equitable. But trampoline games we would put on. So my grandma had like, she was such an eccentric woman, the one who was a music teacher in Ecuador. She like collected instruments from around the world, and she had like all of these. She like also had a lot of like clothes that she had gathered from her travels. And so we would put on like plays with like we called it grandma's costume bin. It was like her fur coat and like all of these like really cool pieces of clothing. And so we would put on productions, which we did well into our 20s. Our last major production was called Chaco Libre, because we were in the Chaco in Paraguay. This is with the Erics, that family I was telling you about. And so we like self-produced this film about like being out on this ranch in the middle of Paraguay. So silly. So I was always the director, obviously, but we had such a blast. Yeah.
Do you play any musical instruments?
No, I played the guitar for a hot second when I had a crush on a guy who played the guitar, but not anymore. My siblings are all very musical. So I do love singing with them, but they all play some sort of instrument. I don't.
Talking about singing, what song did you sing in the CMX karaoke night?
That's a great question. What song did I sing? I was a little Jenny and Vicky got me a little drunk that night. So
Okay, so tell me more about this connection about getting drunk and song choice.
And song choice. Oh man. Yeah, I think it was like probably the first. It was She Will Be Loved. She Will Be Loved by Maroon 5. Yep, that's what it was. Oh man, I was just having a blast with Vicky. We like started, it was the end of CMX, and we like started with margaritas, and then it like progressed to like Japanese food and sake with Jenny, and yeah, it was a wild night.
Day or night?
Yeah, both.
Got it. And tell me more about, how did you meet Vicky?
Vicky, honestly, same way I met you. I saw her like chatting it up in community club Slack, and I was like, she seems to be everywhere all at once. Like,
Yes.
person of interest. So I just reached out and was like, hey, it seems like we have overlap. Like, we should connect. And we had like one phone call, great energy, great connection. But then we basically had one phone call and then got like thrown on a panel together for some virtual summit. And we like didn't know each other. And we were like, okay, I guess we're speaking together. And it worked really well. So from then on, we were like, okay, I guess you're kind of like one of my community people. She's amazing.
Do you always reach out to some people who draw your attention?
Yes. Yep. I follow my gut on that one. If there's like people that I'm like, ooh, you're like smart, or like you, or like you, I just have like a good feeling about you. That's like one of the most. That's where there's so much magic that happens for me. It's just following that little gut instinct.
Yeah. Was it from childhood, this gut, or did you develop it?
Oh, I think I've always been a fairly intuitive person. So I think it's part of, I think it was a little bit of a gift that I've received. I think I've only more recently been willing to trust it. I think growing up, there was a lot of, I think in the culture that I grew up in, there was just a lot of like mistrust for your own like intuition, because especially growing up in like an evangelical culture, it was that can be like confused with what we would call like the flesh, or your like sinful desires. And so I think I kind of spent a lot of my time growing up thinking that I needed to like resist my intuition or resist like my gut, because I couldn't trust it. There was no way you really could like only trust your mind, like logically and logic. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I was like, oh, I'm actually like, I am a gut person, and my gut is like dead on, like it is. And I started to notice, especially with people, you know, because some people I just get a sense for, and I'm like, nope, this is just not, I don't like that. This is not, I don't know what it is, but something here is not. And then like, you know, years go by and it's like something would come out and I was like, I knew it, my gut was on. Or like, or just the opposite of like, oh, this person just has like this vibe and I just get along with them so well, and they become like a really close friend. So I've learned to trust it, but I think it took a while to unpack how I interpreted a lot of that like evangelical culture that I was raised with.
One of my questions was, how do you feel people? But you already answered it. So
how do I feel about people?
How do you feel them? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you already answered it. And your LinkedIn profile link shows your full name, Brianna. But everywhere you are Bri.
That's confusing.
Why and when did you decide to go with Bri instead of Brianna?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When we moved to Qatar, that's when I started going by Bri. So all my Pennsylvania friends will still call me Brianna, and it's kind of like, it was jarring when I first like realized it, because I was like, you know, my friend Chris will be like Brianna, and I'm like, Kristen, like, why are you calling me by my full name?
Did I do something wrong?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, they called me. So my family still calls me Brianna. Bri is just a little bit easier, and there's some debate. Is it Brianna or Brianna? And so I just skip that debate altogether and say Bri.
Yeah, you made people's lives so much easier. So on your LinkedIn, like, there is a list of languages. So not only English, but Arabic, French, Hebrew, Spanish. Is it the full list of languages you speak?
Well, okay, let's take that with a grain of salt. Let's use the word speak very lightly.
At least you understand.
I am a dabbler.
You know?
Yep. I'm very much a dabbler in language. So I don't know if French was on there, but Spanish, French, Arabic, and Hebrew I've all like technically studied. Um, I Spanish is my most the one that I'm quote it's been a while, it's been a minute, I won't lie, but I lived in the DR for like 3 months, and my mom speaks fluent Spanish and my grandpa did, and so it's a little bit more accessible. But the problem for me, I really wish I'm a language person that I like love like learning and dabbling, and like I love the meaning of words. But I realized in my summer living in the DR, being understood and feeling competent are so critical for me. And that is just, I admire people who can like push through into learning a second language, because that like gap of time where you feel completely incompetent because you literally just don't have the language to feel to like, you just have the language of like a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old, or it's like you literally like digress. And I just have like the utmost respect, because I like, it was one of the things in my life where I was like, I don't think I can do this. I think it's going to take too much vulnerability, and I'm not strong enough to be able to do it. So maybe someday, but you and anybody else who is bilingual, I'm like, kudos. I utmost respect.
Do you plan to learn some more languages in the nearest future?
Oh, I would love to dabble. I would love to dabble. But I don't have anything on my, I attempted Hawaiian when I first got here. I was on Duolingo and was just like kind of fooling around a little bit to try and be a little bit more culturally sensitive. It's a super difficult language. So if I couldn't do it with Spanish or French, there's probably not a lot of hope for me with mine, unless I was like extremely intrinsically motivated. So yeah, super open to it, but I think it kind of has to like come to me. I'm not gonna go out like pursuing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what was your longest Duolingo streak?
Oh, that's a great question. Not very much. I think I got into like the 40s, maybe. I think I got into the 40s. Are you on Duolingo?
Yes, because
What?
I'm learning another language. I'm learning Polish right now, so I'm also
Wow.
there. So
Okay. Good for you. Do you get really into, I got like for a season, I got really into like the gamification with it all, and
yeah,
like getting all the points and the gems. Yeah. I love Duolingo. That's actually, yeah. Wasn't it Laura Nessler who had a talk from Duolingo about community? Am I making that up?
don't know, won't lie. So yeah. Uh, on one of your blog posts, you wrote that I spend a lot of my time communicating with people and getting them to do new things they haven't done before. So how
Mm.
do you do it?
How do I change people's behavior?
Yes. How to be this influencer.
Yeah, in these 3 simple steps. No, I mean, where to start? So I kind of subscribe to, when it comes to behavior design, I subscribe to BJ Fogg's method. Have you ever read Tiny Habits?
I haven't read Tiny Habits, but I read Atomic Habits, which is, I believe, practically the same.
Okay, I think they're like the same concept. Yes,
Yeah.
totally. So rather than focusing on creating like a really juicy reward, you focus on how can I reduce this action to like a 30-second start, and how can I create as little, or like reduce the friction to start and take that initial action as much as possible. So I a couple of things that I like consider whenever I'm trying to map out like what's the behavior I want someone to take is, what's the action? What's like what BJ Fogg would call the approved action? How can we reduce that to a tiny action to help get them started? And then are there any like supporting resources? And then how are we prompting that tiny action? And then in addition, are there any supporting resources that we can give to like support that action happening? So like a like really tiny, no pun intended, example is in the heartbeat community that I was working in. I thought about, so one of the approved actions is like we want a member to like leave a reaction. Well, ideally we want them to leave a comment, right, on a post.
Mm-hmm.
We can reduce that and say, leave a reaction. And what I realized is like in platforms like Heartbeat or Slack, when you say leave a reaction, there's actually a lot of friction that happens in that moment because there's like a million emojis to choose from.
Yes.
And have you ever like been like, I don't know what freaking emoji to put on this? Like, it's like, I can spend like an absurd amount of time, which maybe this is just me, but I'm like, if it's me, I'm sure there's other people doing this. So rather than saying leave a reaction, I started saying in the community, like, if you read something, leave an eyes on it, like, or whatever, pick an emoji that's just like the go-to community emoji and be like, if you like something, leave a flame. If you like something, leave a heart, whatever it needs to be. And so that's just like one example of like trying to reduce friction in those moments to get a better behavior outcome that you want to see.
Yeah, and totally. When you make this simpler, people just do it. So exactly how it works. And also you have one more amazing technique that I noticed that like it is very interesting and it's not really straightforward. Then you wrote about that all the marketers wants you to say yes, but you are framing your language in a way that invites a no instead of yes. So tell me more about receiving no instead of yes.
Oh yeah, thanks for reading that. It's always like, oh my gosh, someone read something that I wrote. It makes me feel so good. Such a love language. So I read this in a book called Never Split the Difference. And it's a book written by one of the top like FBI hostage negotiators. So it's a book on negotiation. And I just modified it, kind of like took the concept and ran with it a little bit more. So in his negotiation techniques, he explains how like we are so conditioned to from salespeople to say yes, that like now our biological response is like resistance to saying yes. Like we don't feel safe. We feel like someone's trying to trick us. Like if someone's like, do you need help prospecting your clients? You're like, I'm not going to tell you yes. Like I do, but I'm not. Even if I do it, I'm like, I have no clients. I'm not going to tell you yes. So his whole point was like, because of that shift in culture, when you frame your question in a way that gives permission for the person to respond with no, you're actually giving them, they feel a lot of power and security more than if you had framed it that they'll say yes. So like one really simple example, I can't remember if I included this in the article, that I use is when I'm reaching out to connect with people, I'll say, is this a bad season to connect? And the response that I want them to say is like, no, it's not a bad season to connect. Let's set something up. But it's really subtle, but it's like allowing them to respond in a way that like provides more security than like forcing a yes. I'm forcing the no.
Do people feel guilty sometimes by telling you, no, why do you think that?
That's a good question. I guess like for the person who really wants to connect and wants to say yes, there's always, if I'm like, is this a bad season? They could be like, yeah, I'd love to connect. Like there's still a way for them to like find the yes if that's what they're like leaning towards, but it more just like gives them permission and a way to say no, is what I found.
Yeah, I get it. Why do you love sunsets?
Ooh. Oh man. Such a good question. So I started saying this new like blessing before I eat, and I think it kind of like embodies some of what I love about sunsets. So it goes, We give thanks to the source of light and love, the same presence that gave us a sun to nourish our food, gave us a moon to foster rest and reflection. In the name of the fire, the flame, and the light. And then amen. And so it's like that in between time, right? Like the sun is going down, you're getting ready to like wrap up your day. It's a little bit of the dusky, dim lighting. I think you can see things. Some things are like more obscured, but then some things are like clearer in the sunset and the dusk. I don't know. There's this author called John O'Donohue, and I feel like I'm getting really John O'Donohue right now. But if you read his work, then you'll understand why I love sunsets.
Okay. And what about sunrise?
Also great. Also harder to access for me.
Exactly.
I do. I love a good sunrise, but there's something I don't know, for some reason it just like makes me feel more at peace to see the sun like going down and knowing that I like maybe this is pessimistic, but like I made it through the day. And I'm very future oriented. Like I'm very much a planner. I'm very much like existing in the future. So you'd think that I'd like the sunrise more because it's like, ooh, all of the like things that the day holds. But I'll take the rest of a sunset any day.
Yeah. Is there a tattoo on your middle finger?
Oh, this is a 7.
Tell me more about it.
It's from so I have a really amazing group of girlfriends that I met in college. We were like cultically committed to each other. So we got tattoos one year. We do a like retreat every year together, and we all live. There's like 1 in Chicago, 2 in Indiana, 1 in Michigan, 1 in Texas, and then I'm out here in Hawaii. So we all pick a location and fly in and have a weekend together. And at this point, we've been out of college for quite some years. And we actually this last year had like was a little bit of a like determine the relationship, like what is our purpose, like why are we here? Because this was kind of the year, it was the first year post COVID that we were all able to meet, and it was really fascinating to see. They let me like take everybody through this values exercise, and we like distilled down over 3 days like what each of our individual values were. And then from that, we like found what's the thread between these friendships? Like, even though we're so different from each other, and we've changed so much from just who we were in college, let alone from each other. Like, we are just so different. And so it was a little bit of like, wait, why are we doing this? It's like a lot of work. People have kids, people have families and lives. And like, it was, but we got the tattoos. So we're committed. Nobody's escaping.
Is it because of 7 of you?
Yeah. Yep. There's 7 of us.
Yeah,
It's the number of like completion too. There's so much symbolism with the number 7. So I felt pretty good about it.
And do you believe in numbers?
Ooh, in what respect? What do you mean by that?
I mean, like, do you chase numbers? Do you try to find some sequences? Like, do you have some favorite numbers and all this stuff?
Oh, yes. 3 is my favorite number. I wouldn't say I'm like, I know what you're talking. I'm not like the most gung-ho, but I believe it and I'm super open to it. What do they call that? Not suspicious. What's the word that I'm looking for? When someone is.
Don't ask me. I'm Ukrainian.
Superstitious. That's
Okay.
that's the word
Got
I'm
it.
looking for. I am very superstitious. It's really funny. Like, it comes up in the most unexpected ways. But I haven't gone super deep into the numbers thing, but I do love the number 3 and 7 and 9.
Totally. And 9, yes. Okay. And A few more,
In
yes.
yeah. Okay, there's a couple more.
You recently answered to some of posts on Twitter. Awesome is drawn to awesome. Tell me more about that.
That's probably like the gut thing for me. I don't know how to like define or wrap my hands around awesome. But I think sometimes like things just align in a way that like I want to just keep moving with that energy. I want to just be open and respond in a way that like keeps moving everything forward. It kind of like reminds me, we had a rule at my last job. It was like the improv rule of yes and, if you know that one. So like in improv, if someone in any sort of skit or bit and you're going back and forth, like the number one rule is like you can't respond with a no, which is so anti what I was just saying.
Yes.
But it's true. I hold both of these to be true. I like give permission for the no for people I'm trying to like kind of, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, get something from. But then for people that I'm collaborating with, there's always the yes and. So if someone throws something my way, at this last company, our rule was if anybody put an idea out into the world or out to the team, literally the only response that was acceptable was, wow, yes, and then you had to like add to it. Because we had this like philosophy that like, there's a million good ideas that get howled to death right away, but there's but very few like bad ideas, when you wow them to life, like actually end up, if it's a bad idea, it just somehow mysteriously goes away. So that's kind of like the energy I try to bring into like collaboration. A wow, yes, and.
So more yes and, or still no but?
No, so yes, and when collaborating, giving permission to say no when seeking.
Got it. What coffee do you like?
I actually have converted over to matcha more recently.
Got it.
I'll drink a cup of coffee mostly when someone else makes it for me, but I choose matcha most days. Mizuba matcha.
Bri, I wish to have the sky as the limit to our conversation, but time is the limit. So let's jump to the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Plan or chance?
Oh
Not really rapid fire, yes.
Plan.
Lead or follow?
Lead.
What are your favorite color and song?
Color blue. Song Pierre by Rin Weaver.
If you were a superhero, what superpower would you have?
Flying.
Who do you learn from in the community world? Name one person.
Tatiana Figueredo.
And name two people who you definitely would tell me to have this conversation with.
Oh, have you talked to Jenny Weigel already? Okay, great. Let me just work my list. Madeline, she's in London. Do you know her?
Most likely there are.
And you probably have some overlap. She's wonderful. We're in a mastermind together. I think her last name's Miller, but I might be getting that wrong. You should talk to Madeline. And then Taylor Harrington is a super dynamic person. I also interviewed her, and she's awesome.
Got it. Thank you very much. And is there one question that I definitely should have asked you but didn't?
Oh, good question.
Just like that, the next hour of our conversation started.
I know. Um, maybe you did a great job. I think you covered so many good questions. I would throw in there like what brings me life, maybe. But
What
yeah,
what brings you life?
quite a great question.
Thank you.
um, gosh, I said it, but I didn't have an answer prepared. So I'm just I did there was no ulterior purpose on this one. I mean, I get so much life from being in the water and being around people and seeing people experiencing transformation myself, but also seeing other people experience transformation too. And so it's part of why I work in community. I love to see how like community can help people change and experience transformation, and it's something that I've experienced so much in my life. So that brings me a lot of life, as does like anything with like future plans. I'm very future oriented. I love thinking about like what the world is going to be.
Wow. Yeah. Why did you say that? You just opened a lot of more questions, but no, we have to finish. So we have to leave some questions for the volume 2 because that's always the same. So we just only started and we have to finish. But anyway, Bri, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for being so open, for being so honest. And yeah, when you invited me to have conversation for a blog post, it was great. And now, like, you know something about me, and now I know something about you. So it's much better. And I promise you, let's just get ready for the volume 2. We'll definitely have to continue this conversation one way or another, but we'll have it. So just get ready.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Yuri. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much and see you in the community world. Bye.
Yeah. See you there.